correct with Duryodhan. The reason being, Duryodhan is the Duryodhan Bheem represents hunger for God. So if there's no hunger, if Duryodhan and others they can destroy hunger for God, then it will be easier for them. Now, when when Pandu was died, after that they Kunti and the children moved to the Hastinapur to be with their uncle, the Dhritarashtra. But what's his name? Duryodhan. He grew up when before the Pandav brothers joined him for a few years. He grew up in the feeling that he is going to be the next king. Now, when the five brothers came over, they were a threat to his aspirations, and therefore he always was on the lookout of how to not only run them down, how to get rid of them. And with the help of his uncle, he was always trying to belittle this uh, Bheem. Now, on the other hand, Bheem was one of those was very powerfully built, and he was not. He could by himself take care of all the 101 brothers, cousins which he had, and uh, Duryodhan's biggest grudge against Bheem was that this fellow would come and polish off all their, at mealtime, he would come, not only finish his meal, but he would finish the meals of the others, which was earmarked for Duryodhan, etc. Not that Bheem could not have called for some more stuff from the kitchen, but he would make it a point to finish Duryodhan's meals and irritate him further. Now, this is a little bit of a metaphor when they say, uh, when you say that he used to finish Duryodhan's meal. Duryodhan, all our meals, they gave us sustenance. But Duryodhan here represents the demonic traits. So demonic traits such as unscrupulousness, cheat, etc. And their food is fraud, their food is corruption, their food is nepotism. These are all the kind of food that they thrive upon. All these demonic traits, they thrive upon these kind of food. On the other hand, as far as hunger for God or yearning for God is concerned, they are things to be destroyed. So when Bheem takes over, eats their food, it's in this metaphor, is really destroying these demonic traits. And that is why Duryodhan, one day, he decided, along with under the prompting of his uncle Shakuni, how to get rid of these Bheem. They decided that Bheem, now Yudhishthir was a very trusting person, but Bheem was not that trusting. He was worldly wise, and he suspected Duryodhan whenever such an occasion would be there. Therefore, Duryodhan and his brother Dushasan, they decided and for that purpose, and laced it with a special poison to which they were immune, but to which they thought Bheem would succumb. Now, initially, Bheem was very skeptical about joining them, but when they saw that both Dushasan and Duryodhan taking large helpings, he lowered his guard and he said, "Okay, I'll join you." And he started eating and he started gobbling up a lot of their stuff also. He kept on boasting that, "Okay, bring some more, I'll finish off this also. Bring some more, I'll finish off this also." Till eventually, what happened? Because it was laced with a certain poison, this Bheem, he became unconscious, and sick and unconscious. Both the Duryodhan and Dushasan then quickly took him and threw him into the river which flowed close to their palace, hoping that this fellow will drown. Now, unfortunately for Dushasan, when he was thrown into the river, that river was the king of the underworld, one Vasuki, who spotted him. He took him to his underworld kingdom, and there gave him Amrit, which not only revived him, but made him stronger. Now, this again is a little bit of a metaphor. Duryodhan, as you know, was ego, was a demonic trait. And demonic traits are immune to ego. Nothing, they in fact thrive upon ego. But the yearning for God, for them, ego is a ego will destroy the yearning for God. So the poison which they added to their sweetmeat or kheer which they had prepared was ego. When Duryodhan, when Bheem took this poison, he was naturally, he became sick because that is not his food. However, when they threw him into the river, as you know, it is stands for love. Love invigorates this yearning for God and all divine traits. Vasuki, the king there, is also gave him Amrit. Amrit was another heavy dose of love. So love really revived him and strengthened him. And after that, they took him away. When he was thoroughly revived, they brought him out of the river and they let him go. When he came back, he went and of course complained. But Duryodhan, the wily Duryodhan, he said, no, it was all Bhim's fault. This fellow kept on eating so much that he became sick and he must have tumbled into the river. Anyway, since there was no proof against Duryodhan, they all took it lightly and forgot about it, since in any case, everybody was okay. On the other, elsewhere in what they call the land of Panchal, in its kingdom Campilia, lived a prince whose name was Drupad. Drupad and was sent to because he had come of age about 10 years, he was roughly 10 years old. So he was sent to a Gurukul as per the custom there, where another of his students was a boy called Drona. They were both of the same age, and that Gurukul was Drona's father's Gurukul, sage Bharadwaj. And in this, Drona and Drupad, they became both great friends, and they would always hang on together. And all kinds of promises used to be made. Okay, we'll always be together, we'll never part company, etc., etc. And said, yes, we'll always be good friends. And then in the Gurukul, they're not allowed very many material things, but whatever material thing they had, meager things, they used to share amongst each other. And one day, this Drupad said that even after we leave this Gurukul, we'll not only be friends, we'll share whatever wealth we have. He said, yes, certainly, we are friends and we'll share whatever we have got. Time passed, and both of them, they had to pass out, they had to graduate from their Gurukul. Then this Drupad, he went to his father's palace, where in course of time, when his father died, he became the king of Panchal, and which is capital Campilia. Panchal represents the 5 elements out of which we are all made of. Campilia represents, and both are metaphors, Panchal as well as Campilia. Campilia is the yellow cloth that is covered, that a newborn child, when the mother delivers a child, it is covered with. And the mother is covered with that newborn, with that yellow piece of cloth. That is called Campilia. And this, of course, Campilia represents the world of sex. Now, in this, on the other hand, Drona, he took over his father's Gurukul on his father's death and became the head of that Gurukul. But unlike Drupad, who lived in a life of comfort in the palace, Drona lived a life of extreme poverty. No, I won't call it poverty, austerity. He was a Brahmin, and Brahmin those days they only offered their services free to whoever was deserving and for the benefit of the society. They did not possess anything, and they did not sell their knowledge, because knowledge was considered that it's not for sale. It is a God's gift. So Saraswati's gift which has to be passed on without any returns, and for the welfare of the mankind and welfare of whoever comes to uh, acquire that knowledge. So they lived in quite material wise in poverty. And although in the ancient India, poverty as such was not there, except in the case of Brahmins. There are few Brahmins who chose to remain in poverty. They could have taken up other professions also, but they were seekers of truth, and so they remained in poverty. And but poverty, there are certain minimum needs will be there, which is like you have to have your day-to-day meal. So the society would look after them and not only provide them the day-to-day meals, but even the long-term meals. We'll come to that a little. Now, it happened one day that Dronacharya's son, Ashwathama, he had a son, Ashwathama. Ashwathama also, incidentally, is a metaphor. Dronacharya is also a metaphor. Drona stands for a crow. And a crow is supposed to be one who's double tongued, who says something but means something else. So Dronacharya stands for one who talks double, or who's a duality, who remains in the realm of duality. Ashwathama also is a metaphor. Ashwa means a horse, and a horse represents desire, all kinds of desires. Not material wealth, power, fame, everything. All kinds of desires are represented by Ashwa. Then Ashwathama was born with a mani which was fixed on his forehead. And this mani was the power to control the mind. So this fellow Ashwathama had the power to control his thoughts and mind, and he could very easily control that, whereas our mind generally keeps on wandering. So, beside that, Ashwathama had also been granted a boon of immortality. See, unlike that boon which was given to Bhishma or Devrat, his father Shantanu had given him the boon, where he has said that it was not that you live as long as you want, but die whenever you please. Now, die whenever you please is not the same thing as live as long as you want. Live as long as you want is almost like immortality, which was the boon which was given to Ashwathama by Brahma, that he will never die. He is immortal. I think the only character there who has been given this kind of boon. But he had also been given the money by which he could control his mind, and therefore his desires could be under control. So he represents that aspect within us, that is within us, that we have got desires, but we have also got the power to control the mind. Now, what is desire? Desire, of course, is longing, craving, yearning. But desire really is I want. Now, all of us have got certain needs. Certain needs means biological needs such as hunger. All the animals have got that. Whenever they are hungry, they will eat. There's a trigger in the stomach which tells them that, look, it's time to eat. So the animal or even the human beings will demand food and take it. Then otherwise, if you're tired, there'll be another trigger which will tell you, okay, your muscles are tired, now you go and rest, or you get up and do something. Or in season, the animals will also mate. But the moment the season is over, that urge is no longer there. Now, these are all need-based as required. On the other hand, man has got imagination. Because of that imagination, there's another thing called want. You may have had a very substantial meal, but even after that, suppose somebody brings some dessert, a very tempting dessert, you will not mind taking a big helping from that dessert and say, okay, come on, let's have one more helping, one more helping. That is the greed. So because of the imagination, you have got want, and you've got that want is nothing but greed. And this is a thing which it takes you away from divinity. But desire, it is not merely, and desires originate all in our mind. It is the result of our ego. But desires also originate in within our heart. Although we don't appreciate or realize it, mostly it is never told like that. But desires are also there, because desires, when we say there is a desire for progeny, what we are wanting is Lord's immortality. We continue to live throughout children and grandchildren, etc., etc., and great grandchildren. So Lord is immortal, and through progeny we are trying to seek immortality. Then when we want wealth, desire, you may have desire for wealth. That wealth we are trying to actually uh, acquire Lord's infinite affluence. When you want fame, it is like desiring God's glory. When it is security, then what we are desiring is Lord's freedom from fear. Like that, all these desires that we have got, they have their origin in God is Himself, and that is the place when it is wanting. That is a place, or rather, that aspect of it is originate from our heart. That means it will appear as if there's no harm in having desires. It's not entirely like that. Desires that we have are unconscious, and they're all dictated uh, by our mind rather than by our heart. Now, when they are dictated by our mind, then if the desire doesn't get fulfilled, then we tend to become very angry, and we anger, hatred, all these qualities will come in. And in fact, if it doesn't get fulfilled, we'll start yearning for it a lot more, and we'll strive to get it by hook or by crook. Now, on the other hand, so the question comes in: how do we go about eliminating these desires? Now, you can't really eliminate desires. If you can do that, it is very good, but it's very, very difficult. It's just like your mind, which keeps on moving like the whirlwind. It keeps on from jumping from one subject to another subject. So desires also, once you try to fulfill it, the moment you fulfill one desire, another thing will come up. Or if you have reached a certain limit, then it will want something more, because desires originate from our ego. We look around. I've got one big, let's say, a car. My neighbor has got a bigger car. I'll want a bigger car also. In the similar manner, our desires keep on mounting and continuing, and there is no end to desire. These are all desires that emanate from our ego and from our wants, imagination. This one of the methods suggested is that to become a little sporting, to consider the desires also, that okay, sometimes we'll get, sometimes we'll not get. If you have a little playfulness if you in sporting uh, element thrown into your desires also along with it, then it is possible that you may not get angry. You say, okay, this time I've lost. I could not get what I wanted. Next time I'll get it. So you won't get very angry. On the other hand, the desires that emanate from that should emanate from our heart, our desires is generally for a certain finite quantity. I want power to such a small extent. I want or finite quantity of power I want, finite quantity of glory I want, finite quantity of wealth I want. All these things are there. But these things also can, like I said, originate from our heart. In order to get rid of these kind of desires, the best thing is to ask for the God Himself, that I want God and I want everything to the ultimate. Once you give the mind that kind of task, that you have to ask for the whole, complete, not in parts or not in finite quantity, then that way you are able to slightly turn your desires from finite quantity to infinite quantity or to God. Now, this was the, coming back to the story, Drone and this, after they used to live together in the different places, happened that after that when Ashwatthama was growing up, once he went out to play, and since he was very poor, he didn't know what milk was. So the friends tried to make fun of him, and what they did was they took some water, mixed some white powder, suspended it into in the milk, or rather turned it. Sorry. So his friends took a bowl of water, added some white powder in it, mixed it, and told him, "This is milk. You can drink it since you have not had milk." So he was very happy, and he went home and told his mother that today I've had milk. Oh, she said, "Yeah, very good." He said, "From where did you get it?" He said, "No, my friends have brought a glass of or a bowl of something, and they mixed something and they made milk out of it." Then immediately his mother could make out that these people had been trying to make fun of him. So she was very upset. She told her husband Dronacharya. By that time, Drona was being called addressed as Dronacharya. Said, "Look, your friend is king of this place of Kampilia and Panchal. You better go to him, and he's bound to give you some dakshina, or not dakshina, dan. Now, dan we treat as charity, but in India we don't consider dan or bhiksha or any such thing as charity. The reason being, we feel that in every being there is a trace of divinity within us. Like there is an atma. That atma is really the soul, and that soul is nothing but God. So when there's God within us, each one of us is really God. So what charity can we do to God? So charity as such is considered a no-no word. It's not done thing in India in the ancient time. That does not mean we did not share our wealth. The wealth was shared, but it was shared through means of dan and through bhiksha. Bhiksha in somebody, I think Max Miller or one of the Westerners, they translated to mean begging, or the alms that you get. That and bhik is supposed to be begging, but bhik and bhiksha are not begging and alms. Bhik, those days, like I mentioned earlier, that the Brahmins they did not charge any money from anybody for the services they used to offer, not just teaching them, but whatever they were called upon to perform various pujas, etc., or they were called upon to give some advice, or most of them were very educated in various fields. So if it was construction or building something, they would go there, but they would not charge anything. And because of that, they wouldn't have there to live on the I would not say mercy, but on the generosity of the general public. So the thing was that for the daily need, the Brahmin was supposed to go around every day to 5 houses, and and these 5 houses they would give him some uh, food stuff which you could take home and cook and every day eat it that way. So this way they had no possessions at all. However, they would need some long-term provisions also. The day-to-day things would be taken care of bhiksha, but their long-term needs, such as they would need some clothing to cover their bodies, they would need a few utensils, they would need a little bit of mat, etc., on which to sleep. So that they have to acquire through dan. Dan, of course, is not merely, like I said, uh, charity. Dan was also a means whereby you could whereby those people who had money, they would invest or rather share with the society, and they would call the Brahmins and say, "Here is a lot of this money. You get it done. Share with those people who really need it." Which means other Brahmins who may not have money, because all others were very well off. The uh, Vaishyas would be one who would be the traders. They would be making a lot of money, and that money used to be collected by the king in terms of through taxes, and that used to be distributed among the Kshatriyas, and of course through Brahmins also. As far as the Shudra was concerned, the working class were very well paid, and they were exceedingly well looked after. So there was no problem with those people as far as finance is concerned. The only category of people who are really poor, who, as far as they are, of course, who are poor by choice, not otherwise. They were poor by choice, but they were the need. They were the people who needed support on a day-to-day basis and for the long-term basis also. So Lan took care of the long-term need. Bhiksha took care of their day-to-day need. Dan, in addition, as I was mentioning, was a means by which those who had money, the merchants, etc., they could give a lot of dan and say, please share with others who are needy and keep some for yourself also. And whatever further is left, you may invest it in the uh, construction of buildings or whatever. That is for common good. For example, if you needed some water tank or well, that could be constructed. If you needed some small buildings where people could go and rest, while travelers could rest, or in any other method, then which was for general welfare, they could do that. You could invest it in the construction of your Gurukula also. Now, in the what had happened was that when after the milk incident, then Dronacharya was asked by his wife to go to Drupad and seek and get not seek because they would not ask for anything. They would get the dan. Now, when the Dronacharya went to Kampilya and to his palace, normally if you come for collecting bhiksha, that is alms, they would have it announced that Bhiksham Devi, that means please give me, please, whatever sustenance for the body, please give sustenance for the body which you, and all the ladies, especially of the house, would run and they would say, okay, Brahman Devata has come there. That's how they used to be addressed. They were all addressed as God. Brahman Devata, they used to be addressed as this come for collecting bhiksha, please run up and give him. So the ladies of the house would run up and give the bhiksha to the Brahmins on a day-to-day basis. And whoever comes, there may be one, two, three. But if it could not, suppose a Brahmin could not get from one house enough, though he was allowed to go to second house, third house, fourth house, five houses, but not more than five houses. Similarly, when he had been to that palace, Dronacharya, then Dronacharya normally would say, please tell the king a Brahmin has come. So the gate, the security guard would go there and announce to the gate, a Brahmin has come there, which means that you have to give some dan. But this time when Dronacharya went there, he said that, please tell the king, your friend, the Brahmin Drona has come. Now when this Drupad heard that his friend Brahmin Drona has come there, although he very well placed him, that he was the same boy who had come there, he took objection to it. He said, no, the friendship is always between equals. Then he said, when Dronacharya was presented to him, he said, look, friendship is always become amongst equals. And since you are not my equal, you can't be my friend. On the other hand, if you want dan, certainly dan will be given to you as per our dharma. But you can't call yourself a friend. Dronacharya didn't like that. He just turned back and walked away. And he did not even collect the dan which he had gone to get from, which he was expecting, or rather, which he thought he would get from his friend, this man, Drupad. Drupad was one who, okay, Drupad is also a metaphor, which I didn't tell you. Drupad stands for one who considers that he is the only body, is nothing other than a body. And in fact, all of us initially, especially youngsters, they say, no, I am the body. What is there? Other than me, there's nothing else. Now, this feeling that you are a body is so ingrained into us, and the reason for that is our sense of perception. See, if somebody were to pinch us or slap us, immediately we come to know and we ask, are you hurt? Yes, I'm hurt because this place, I've been struck here, or I've been pinched here. My body has been pinched, or I've been struck here. So I can feel that, I can sense that injury to my body. On the other hand, if somebody strikes a little bit away from my body, I'm not going to feel it at all. So that is why the sense of perception tells us that the limit of our sense of perception is limited to our body from head to toe and from one arm to the other arm extended like this. That is what is our body, and that is what is me. If I've been hurt, or if that body has been hurt, that is me. There's another aspect to this. The food that we eat, let's say an apple or whatever, as long as it's on the table, it has separate entity. But when I cut it and eat it, then that apple goes into my stomach and it disappears. It's no longer an apple. It has turned into me, or it has turned into my body. That is what that is another reason why we feel that me or my body defines me, the limit of me or I. However, there is the real me is defined by consciousness. Now we may not realize it, but consciousness shrinks and extends way beyond our body. It is not limited to our body. Especially, for example, when you're in deep sleep, then your consciousness shrinks. Even if you're tapped, somebody comes and touches you. When in a waking state, you immediately say, yes, somebody has touched me. But in the deep sleep state, you are not going to realize that somebody has touched you. Consciousness has shrunk to a much smaller size. In the same manner, although we don't realize it, our consciousness extends way beyond our physical body. These days, even modern scientists have done a lot of research and found that indeed, if you start seriously, if somebody you're staring at somebody very intently, then that somebody, whoever it is, will immediately sense that somebody is staring at him, and he'll turn around here and there until he spots that person who's staring at him, and then again he'll be quite all right. Now, it need not be that you have to be in physical line of sight of that person, of your target whom you are staring at. You can be thinking about him and so-called staring even from behind a wall, but the other person will be able to sense it. So your consciousness is not limited to your body alone. It is limited to way beyond your body also. That is what the sage tells us. Expand yourself to such an extent that you cover the whole world. And the sages tell us that indeed we can cover, and our consciousness we are not sensitive. Otherwise, if we would have been sensitive, we would have discovered that our consciousness extends way beyond us. And this is in fact one of the goals that we try to do with all these various spiritual practices, meditation, or being a good human being, etc. When you do all this not charity, I would say seva, service, or dan, sharing of wealth, whatever good deed you do, then that is helps you in expanding yourself. If you have been able to expand yourself till you cover the whole world, then that is you become that is the divinity. That's what eventually we'd all be trying. Now, Drupad and Dronacharya, like I said, Drupad was just a person who person or that aspect of us who is all the time feeling that, look, I'm the body alone. Dronacharya duality, he represents that aspect of us which believes that there is a body, of course, but there's something more than a body. He's a little more advanced soul. And he says, no, there's something more than a body. That a body cannot exist by itself. There must have been some creator, etc. And he starts thinking in those terms. And this, so there are these two aspects. One is Dronacharya, and the other is Drupad. Drupad is, like I said, he's just a person who thinks he is the body and nothing more than the body. Dronacharya is one who has gone beyond that, and he knows that he is not only the body, but there's something more than him. Although he may not know what it is, but he knows there's something more than him.